Of course, one of the big talking points coming out of this game, as it has been throughout the entire qualification window, has been that the cattle simply isn't there. When you look back at the golden generation and compare it to this side, it's chalk and cheese, apples and pears, whatever you want to call it. They're not the same. It's a myth, isn't it, Ante? The players are different, but the cattle is there to perform better than this.
Yeah, we spoke about this during the week in the lead-up, and utilisation of players is a far more prevalent issue than the level of talent or the amount of talent that Australian football has, irrespective of the level of opportunities or the lack of scope that some players receive at A-League level, which then informs the players we do have available for selection at Socceroos level. I think Graham Arnold, the primary dynamic in all of this is that he has poorly utilised the players he has. And COVID, unfortunately, will probably be used as a crutch, and it's secondary to this aspect on a tactical basis.
I mean, we saw even against the Japanese players not being put in positions to succeed. Connor Metcalf, for one, he has a skill set that he is effective with at Melbourne City. He has a role that he plays, late arrivals into the box, nicking goals, and he just wasn't put in a position to emphasise his talents against Japan, was he?
In the same way that Jackson Irvine was in very early phases of this qualification phase, Graham Arnold last night essentially took away the one thing that Connor Metcalf was good at with that late entry into the box. There was one instance where Owen Mobile had the ball one-on-one, and Metcalf is having to make a 25 to 30 metre run into the box. The distance that he has to cover is just too great to make that impact closer to goal. And he did say, or Graham Arnold did say after the presser, that he was worried about Connor Metcalf's early yellow card, and that influenced why Jago came on. But then, as a consequence of all that, you're not really changing the dynamic of the game and the complexion of the game, coming back to the very low or the less than optimal use of the players we have.
I mean, and talking about less than optimal, Aiden Hrustic, he certainly looked, his body language screamed that he didn't feel that he was being properly utilised in this game. During the game, after the game, he was clearly frustrated with what was going on. He was deployed, especially in that first half, that second striker role, couldn't get into the game.
I guess the funniest thing about that last night was just how angry he was after the game, and you get the impression that he was very frustrated as the game wore on. He simply had no one to play with. He had no one to combine with, and not just with Mitchell Duke's use as a striker up front and how that relates to him, the ability to incorporate the wingers into the game, what he's getting from midfield. He was in a lot of instances against Japan working in isolation, and that, for a creative player, that's one of the most frustrating things you can experience on a football pitch.